What if the mental habits you think are protecting you are actually destroying your happiness? 3 a.m., heart racing, mind spinning through worst-case scenarios that never materialize, the knot in your stomach before every decision, the exhaustion of obsessing over what others think. We have normalized this anxiety, calling it responsibility or preparation. But it's slowly killing your potential. A revolutionary truth: the tighter you try to control life, the more it spins into chaos. The more desperately you seek approval, the emptier you feel. And the more you worry about the future, the less you experience the present. But most shocking of all, when you finally stop this exhausting mental circus, everything mysteriously starts working in your favor. Michel de Montaigne discovered this paradox 500 years ago. Hidden away in his tower, this French nobleman and politician conducted a radical experiment in self-knowledge. He stripped away societal expectations to uncover a startling truth. We suffer not primarily from external events, but from our frantic attempts to control them. What he uncovered wasn't just philosophy, it was psychological freedom that modern science is only now confirming. The mental prison keeping you stuck isn't built by external forces. You constructed it yourself, believing it would protect you, never realizing it's actually suffocating your potential. Look at the evidence in your own life. When did your best ideas come? During anxious overthinking or in moments of mental ease? When have your relationships flourished? While micromanaging them or when genuinely connecting? The pattern is unmistakable, but we keep ignoring it. Your brain burns 20% of your body's energy, but where's that power going? Rehearsing arguments that never happen? Replaying embarrassing moments? Imagining worst-case scenarios? This isn't just inefficient, it's sabotaging everything you want. Society sold you a lie that anxiety equals preparation, that overthinking equals intelligence, that control equals success. But this collective delusion has created a society where we're chronically exhausted, yet perpetually unsatisfied. We analyze rather than experience. We prepare rather than participate. We're experts at anticipating problems, yet novices at recognizing when life is actually going well right in front of us. What Montaigne discovered through self-examination, modern neuroscience now confirms. When worry activates your amygdala, it triggers a biological chain reaction that floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. This stress cocktail literally shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for creative thinking, rational decision-making, and seeing the big picture. The very mental state you think is helping you solve problems is biologically preventing solutions from emerging. Montaigne didn't just identify the problem, he discovered the antidote. The solution wasn't more control, more analysis, or more preparation. It was strategic detachment. Not cold indifference, but the deliberate release of mental burdens that serve no purpose. He found that when we stop white-knuckling our way through life, something mysterious happens. Situations resolve themselves, creativity flourishes, and opportunities appear almost magically. This isn't just philosophical theory. When you're constantly worried, your brain physically changes. Your thinking narrows, your creativity diminishes, and your ability to see possibilities collapses. The very mental state you think is helping you solve problems is biologically preventing solutions from emerging. Here's where most people get it wrong. They assume that letting go means giving up. They think that if they're not constantly vigilant, constantly planning, constantly worrying, then they're being irresponsible or lazy. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding. Detachment isn't about withdrawing from life or becoming passive. It's about engaging with life from a place of inner freedom rather than compulsive control. Have you noticed that your best ideas come when your mind is relaxed, not when you're desperately trying to think of solutions? That relationships flow more naturally when you're not trying to micromanage them? That happiness arrives in moments of presence, not when you're frantically chasing it? These aren't coincidences. They're glimpses of what life looks like when you stop getting in your own way. But if detachment is so powerful, why do most people resist it? The answer is simple: fear. We're afraid that if we loosen our grip, everything will fall apart. We believe that our constant vigilance is what's holding our lives together. We've confused control with security, worry with care, and overthinking with wisdom. And so, we cling tighter, push harder, and worry more, creating the very chaos we're trying to avoid. From childhood, we're taught that success comes from effort, that achievement requires struggle, that certainty is the goal. The entire modern world is structured around the illusion of control. We're constantly told that with enough planning, enough work, enough worry, we can somehow make life behave according to our expectations. But life has never worked that way. It's unpredictable, complex, and constantly changing. No amount of worry can prevent unexpected events. No amount of planning can guarantee specific outcomes. And the energy we waste trying to accomplish these impossible tasks is energy we could be investing in actually living. Montaigne understood this at a profound level. He saw that true wisdom isn't found in seeking control, but in cultivating adaptability. It's not about eliminating uncertainty, but becoming comfortable with it. It's not about avoiding pain, but developing the resilience to move through it without being defined by it. This shift in perspective doesn't just reduce anxiety, it transforms your entire experience of being alive. This philosophy transforms every aspect of life. Take social validation. When you're approval addicted, you become a psychological chameleon, constantly morphing to please whoever's in front of you. Your opinions, behaviors, even your values shift like quicksand. The result? Nobody knows who you actually are, including yourself. But when you break this addiction, your authentic voice emerges. You stop wasting energy on constant impression management. People are mysteriously drawn to this authenticity, giving you effortlessly what you couldn't get through desperate seeking. Or consider how control obsession corrupts your relationship with reality. When you're fixated on specific outcomes, life becomes an endless series of disappointments. A project evolves differently than planned. Failure. A relationship takes an unexpected turn. Crisis. The weather disrupts your perfect day. Disaster. But when you release this death grip on expectations, your adaptability skyrockets. You spot opportunities in disruptions. You navigate change with grace. You access creative solutions invisible to the rigid mind. When trapped in cycles of worry, your mind is never fully present. You miss the beauty, connection, and joy available in the current moment because you're mentally elsewhere. But when you stop worrying so much, you wake up to your actual life. You notice details you previously overlooked. You experience deeper connections because you're actually listening rather than mentally preparing your next response. The irony is that the very things we're trying to achieve through control, approval seeking, and worry, stability, acceptance, safety, are actually more accessible when we stop pursuing them so desperately. This is the paradox at the heart of Montaigne's philosophy. Letting go gives you more, not less. But make no mistake, this isn't easy. Centuries of conditioning don't disappear overnight. The habits of control, worry, and people-pleasing are deeply ingrained. They feel like safety, even when they're actually causing harm. Moving beyond them requires courage and practice. This is where most people get stuck. They intellectually understand the problem, but they revert to old patterns when faced with real-life challenges. Knowledge alone isn't enough. You need practical strategies to break free from these mental prisons. Let's move from philosophy to action. How do you actually implement this mindset in a world designed to keep you anxious, controlling, and approval-seeking? First, develop what psychologists call metacognition, the ability to observe your own thinking patterns. When worry spirals start, mentally step back and watch the process unfold. There's my mind catastrophizing again. This creates crucial space between you and your thoughts, revealing they're just mental events, not reality. Second, Interrogate these thoughts like a skeptical detective. Is this worry based on evidence or imagination? What's the actual probability this will happen? Would this really be as devastating as I'm imagining? Studies show 85% of what we worry about never happens. And of the 15% that does, 79% of people discovered they handled it better than expected or learned something valuable. Your brain presents worst-case scenarios as certainties. Challenge this distortion relentlessly. Third, anchor yourself in the present. Your mind treats imagined futures and pasts as real, triggering identical physiological stress responses. But power exists only in the now. When caught in mental time travel, use physical sensation as an anchor. Feel your feet on the ground, your breath in your body, the texture of whatever you're touching. This neurological pattern interrupt stops worry circuits from running on autopilot. Fourth, transform your relationship with uncertainty. The anxious mind interprets ambiguity as danger, but history's greatest achievements emerge from uncertainty. Einstein's theories, revolutionary businesses, profound art, all required venturing into the unknown. Start seeing uncertainty not as a threat, but as a canvas of possibilities. When unexpected situations arise, ask, what opportunities might this create that my plans would have prevented? This cognitive reframing converts anxiety triggers into excitement triggers. Fifth, revolutionize your definition of success. Society programmed you to measure worth through achievement, acquisition, and approval. External metrics that keep you perpetually inadequate. Montaigne proposed a radical alternative. What if success meant alignment with your authentic nature, rather than conformity to external standards? What if speaking your truth, living by your values, and expressing your genuine self were the actual measurements that mattered? This isn't feel-good philosophy. It's a strategic realignment that frees you from the comparison trap. Sixth, apply strategic self-compassion. Your brain has been running worry algorithms for decades. Expect resistance. When you fall back into old patterns, and you will, the typical response is self-criticism. I'm failing at not worrying. This triggers more anxiety, creating a perfect negative loop. Break this cycle by treating yourself with the same pragmatic compassion you'd offer an elite athlete learning a new skill. Setbacks aren't failures. They're data points in the recalibration process. As these practices become habits, something remarkable begins to happen. The mental fog of constant worry starts to clear. The exhaustion of people-pleasing gives way to the energy of authenticity. The frustration of trying to control everything transforms into the freedom of working with life rather than against it. You begin to experience what Montaigne described as equanimity, not the absence of challenges, but the presence of inner steadiness, regardless of external circumstances. This doesn't mean you never plan or never care about others' perspectives. It means you engage with life from a foundation of inner freedom rather than compulsive reactivity. You plan without attachment to specific outcomes. You consider others' views without being defined by their approval. You address legitimate concerns without spiraling into catastrophic worrying. The difference is subtle but profound, and it changes everything. You might wonder, does this philosophical approach actually work in real life? Modern research delivers a clear verdict. The psychological trait most strongly correlated with life satisfaction isn't intelligence, attractiveness, or achievement. It's what researchers call psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt to circumstances without rigid resistance. When you escape chronic worry, your body produces less cortisol, strengthening immune function and cognitive performance. Your prefrontal cortex regains full function, enhancing creativity and decision-making. Even your telomeres, the protective caps on your DNA that determine biological aging, can change their structure, potentially extending lifespan. This isn't alternative philosophy, it's mainstream science. Consider how this might play out in your own life. Imagine approaching your work with genuine curiosity, rather than the desperate need to prove your worth. Imagine entering conversations with actual interest in the exchange of ideas rather than anxiety about how you'll be perceived. Imagine moving through challenges with creative adaptability rather than rigid expectations. The truth is, most of what weighs you down isn't necessary. Most of what you worry about never happens. Most of what you think others are thinking about you, they aren't. Most of the control you believe you have is illusion. When you release these mental burdens, not through denial, but through clear-eyed recognition of their futility, you reclaim enormous amounts of energy, attention, and capacity for joy. There's something else Montaigne understood that transcends personal benefit. When you liberate yourself from these mental traps, you create ripple effects that extend far beyond your individual experience. Authenticity is contagious. Your willingness to speak truth disrupts performance culture. Your comfort with uncertainty gives others permission to acknowledge what they don't know. Your self-acceptance challenges the perfectionism epidemic, crippling our collective potential. History confirms this pattern. Every significant cultural transformation began with individuals who rejected conventional thinking, leaders who remained calm amidst chaos, artists who created despite criticism, scientists who pursued truth over acceptance. These weren't superhuman beings. They were people who understood, often intuitively, the power of psychological freedom. By practicing what Montaigne preached, you don't just change your experience, you become a walking alternative to a system designed to keep everyone anxious, insecure, and controllable. Where do you begin? Not with grandiose declarations, but with small moments of awareness and choice. Notice when you're caught in worry and gently bring yourself back to the present. Observe when you're seeking approval and remind yourself of your own values. Recognize when you're trying to control outcomes and practice accepting what's actually unfolding. Start with just one area of your life, perhaps a relationship where you're particularly concerned with approval, a project where you're especially controlling, or a recurring worry that consumes significant mental energy. Apply these principles and observe how your experience changes when you approach it differently. The journey from control to freedom, from anxiety to peace, from people-pleasing to authenticity isn't completed overnight. It's an ongoing practice, a continuous unlearning of harmful patterns. There will be setbacks and struggles. This isn't failure, it's the natural rhythm of deep change. What matters isn't perfection, but direction. Are you moving toward greater awareness? Are you becoming more capable of recognizing when you're caught in these patterns? Are you developing the capacity to choose differently? If so, you're already transforming your relationship with life in ways that will ultimately transform your experience of living. Montaigne's insights have endured for 5 centuries precisely because they address the fundamental tension of human existence, the gap between how life actually works and how we think it should work. His philosophy isn't some archaic historical curiosity. It's a psychological vaccine against the modern epidemic of anxiety, exhaustion, and disconnection. What he offers isn't a utopian promise of perpetual happiness or freedom from all challenges. It's something far more valuable, a way to move through life without being constantly at war with it. It's the ability to face reality without the exhausting filter of how things should be. It's the capacity to engage fully with what is, rather than wasting your limited energy fighting against what isn't. When people describe feeling a weight lifted off their shoulders, this is precisely what they mean. The profound relief of putting down burdens you never needed to carry. The ultimate revelation is that everything you've been desperately seeking through control, approval seeking, and worry has been sabotaged by the very methods you've used to pursue them. Security doesn't come from eliminating all risk. It comes from knowing you can navigate uncertainty. Respect isn't earned through impression management. It emerges naturally from authentic self-expression. Peace doesn't arrive when problems disappear. It comes when you stop treating challenges as threats to your identity. When you stop worrying, everything starts to go well, not because life magically becomes perfect, but because you're no longer fighting against reality itself. You stop exhausting yourself with resistance to what is. You stop missing the actual moment because you're trapped in mental projections about what might happen. You cease being a prisoner of your own expectations. In that freedom, you discover what Montaigne knew centuries ago. Life flows naturally in your favor when you stop disrupting its current with your desperate attempts to force it into channels it was never meant to follow. If you're tired of living in a mental prison of your own creation, if you're exhausted from the weight of expectations that were never yours to begin with, if you're ready to experience the liberation that comes when you stop fighting against reality, subscribe to the channel, challenge yourself, rise above, become more. Like this video, share it with people drowning in anxiety and perfectionism, and tell me in the comments, what would you do differently tomorrow if you completely stopped caring about others' approval? What radical changes would emerge if you released the exhausting grip of control? The answer might reveal exactly what you should be pursuing next. Let's talk about it.